Welcome to the Nation of History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. The liberation of Bergen-Belsen in 1945 was a crucial moment at the end of the Second World War. The Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, located in Germany, was liberated by British troops on April 15, 1945. A man wearing a spacesuit and holding a beaker with boiling water inside a vacuum chamber, simulating an altitude of 65,000 feet, taken on February 8, 1953. This experiment was conducted to study the effects of extremely low atmospheric pressure on liquids under high-altitude conditions. A boy sitting in the rubble of a building after a bombing in the Second World War. This photo portrays the devastation caused by air raids, which left large areas of cities destroyed. During the end of the Second World War, many French women were punished publicly for collaboration with the Germans, which included relationships with enemy soldiers or support for the occupation regime. The photo by Louis Wicks. Hein, taken on a Sunday morning around 8 o'clock in the morning, captures Boston Newsies, the newspaper sellers of the time, next to their dog. Hein, a well-known photographer and social activist, documented the living and working conditions of children and workers across the United States during the early 20th century. A destroyed bridge in 1945 reflects the suffering and devastation experienced by millions of people at the end of the Second World War. With Europe in ruins after years of conflict, many people were forced to leave their homes and communities, fleeing violence, bombings, and the consequences of war. German soldiers comforting a distressed, crying child in 1944 reflects a moment of compassion amid the brutality of the Second World War. During that period, families and civilians in conflict areas faced immense hardship, and children were often the most vulnerable to the horrors of war. In 1945, during the end of the Second World War, many German troops surrendered to the Soviet Red Army, especially in the context of the final offensive in Europe. The surrender of German soldiers was a clear sign that the war was coming to an end. The 1936 photograph that portrays Pennsylvania cemeteries and the Bethlehem steel mill offers a powerful view of the contrast between life and death, work and rest. At the time, Bethlehem Steel, located in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, was one of the largest and most productive steel mills in the world. The first photograph of a tornado, taken by a local fruit farmer in Anderson County, Kansas, in 1884, is a historic milestone in the documentation of natural phenomena. This pioneering image was captured with the cameras of the time, which were quite rudimentary compared with modern photographic equipment. The 1908 image related to hyperthyroidism and protruding eyes reflects a medical condition known as exophthalmos, commonly associated with hyperthyroidism, especially in Graves' disease. The condition of elastic skin, or cutaneous hypermobility, is characterized by the skin's ability to stretch more than normal, often because of a deficiency in collagen. This trait is rare and can be seen in some people from childhood, usually as a hereditary condition. The reference to sharp teeth or pointed teeth is usually associated with specific cultural practices or medical conditions. In some cultures, tooth sharpening was or is a ritual or decorative practice in which teeth are intentionally modified to have points as a sign of status, protection, or identity. The 1931 ice mask, developed by factors, was an innovative invention of the time used as a beauty and skincare treatment. Created to improve blood circulation and offer cosmetic benefits, the mask was applied to the face to reduce swelling and provide a refreshing effect. The practice of sunbathing under a cellophane blanket in 1932 reflects the health and wellness trends of the time. During the early years of the 20th century, many people were experimenting with new forms of health care, and sunbathing began to gain popularity for its supposed healing properties. Joseph Strauss, the chief engineer of the Golden Gate Bridge, required that a net be placed beneath the bridge during its construction. That net was a crucial safety measure, especially considering the risks involved in building one of the most challenging and iconic bridges of the time. A sack train, probably referring to improvised bunk cars or transport cars, provided mobile housing for hemlock logging crews, a type of pine, in the late 1800s near Cross Fork in Potter County in northern Pennsylvania. The prototype for Shrek was inspired by the French wrestler Maurice Tillet, born in 1903, who had a unique appearance due to a rare medical condition called acromegaly, which causes excessive growth of bones and tissues. Hector Murdoch returned home on his birthday in 1945 after serving during the Second World War. The end of the war brought immense relief to many families, and the return of soldiers was a time of celebration and emotional reunions. The Ladby Viking ship, buried in 925, is one of Denmark's most significant archaeological finds and an important landmark in Viking history. This ship was used for the burial of a Viking king, who was interred with a large amount of valuable goods. Pigeons trained with cameras attached to their bodies were used to take aerial photos. This innovative experiment was one of the earliest attempts at aerial photography, long before the use of drones. The pigeons were equipped with small cameras that were triggered automatically during flight. Conrad Veidt, an actor famous for his performance in the movie The Man Who Laughs, released in 1928 and directed by Paul Lenny. That movie was an adaptation of Victor Hugo's work and became well known for Veidt's performance, which inspired the character of the Joker, later created in DC Comics. Albert Einstein at the New York World's Fair was a notable moment in 1939. The fair, which had the theme Building the World of Tomorrow, was a showcase of technological and scientific innovation, and Einstein, as one of the brightest figures in science at the time, was invited to be one of the main attractions. Around 1940, 3 million men enrolled in the Civilian Conservation Corps, a relief and work program created during the Great Depression in the United States. The Boeing Y1B-9, during its test flight in 1932, was one of the first long-range single-engine bombers to feature a retractable landing system. This model was an important innovation for the time because the use of retractable landing gear helped improve the airplane's aerodynamics, reducing drag during flight. The reference to an airplane with the engine prepared during a preparedness parade, possibly in New York or Chicago in 1916, is related to events that took place in the United States in preparation for possible entry into the First World War. Marilyn Monroe, in 1955, remained one of the greatest icons of popular culture and world cinema. In the 1950s, she was at the peak of her career with movies such as The 7-Year Itch and Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, which cemented her image as a symbol of beauty, sensuality, and charisma. Marilyn Monroe in 1953 was at the peak of her career and was establishing herself as one of Hollywood's greatest icons. In that year, she starred in the famous movie The 7-Year Itch, which made her even more popular and solidified her image as a symbol of beauty, sensuality, and glamour. Marilyn Monroe and Bettie, two of Hollywood's biggest stars in the 1950s, were among the most iconic figures of the time. In 1953, they were symbols of beauty, glamour, and sensuality. Jane Mansfield in 1950 was beginning to emerge as one of the biggest movie stars and a beauty icon of the 1950s. With her stunning looks and charismatic presence, she quickly became one of Hollywood's most recognized figures. Bettie Page in 1954 was one of the most iconic models of the post-Second World War era, known for her bold style and her unique look. She stood out as one of the most popular figures of the golden age of pin-up photography. Street photos of China taken 100 years ago offer a valuable glimpse of everyday life in the early 20th century. These images capture scenes of traditional towns, busy markets, and people in the typical clothing of the time, reflecting culture and customs before major social changes. The image shows a Victorian house being moved by horse teams in San Francisco in 1908. During that time, Victorian-style houses were often relocated to new sites because of urban growth and the need to reconfigure the city. Lady Florence Norman was one of the first women to be seen riding a motor scooter in London in 1916, challenging the social norms of her time. She was a pioneer in the use of motorized vehicles, which were beginning to become more popular in the early 20th century. London's oldest timber façade, dated to the 13th century, is a remarkable structure that combines building elements from different eras. The base of the building is a stone structure with an arch from the 13th century, which reflects medieval London architecture, while the building itself was erected in the 16th century. The medieval market was originally created to house merchants, mainly food sellers, and over the centuries, it became a vital center for the city's trade. Today, Leadenhall Market is a tourist destination and a site of historical interest, remaining a fascinating example of London's long history. The Giuni Ludovici Roundhouse was a unique and notable building, transported along the River Thames in London in 1917. The roundhouse was a round brick structure built by the Ludovici Company, intended to serve various purposes, including storage facilities and other industrial uses. Charlie Chaplin and Edna Purviance appeared together in the short Carmen, released in 1915. However, it is worth noting that this is not a widely recognized movie, since Chaplin and Purviance were involved in several other projects that became more famous. Jerry Lee Lewis was one of the most influential figures in music history, especially in rock, with iconic hits like Great Balls of Fire and Whole Lotta Shakin' Goin' On. He was known for his wild and irreverent style, both in his music and in his personal life. Kim Novak was photographed in the 1960s, a period when she was one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Known for her unique beauty and acting talent, Novak became a movie icon, starring in memorable films such as The Man with the Golden Arm, 1955, and Vertigo, 1958, by Alfred Hitchcock. Catherine Bell is an actress known for her work in television series, especially for her role as Major Sarah Mackenzie in the series Jag, which made her a popular figure in the 1990s and the 2000s. Raquel Welch in 1967 stood out as one of Hollywood's leading actresses, famous for her beauty and talent. At the height of her career, she became an icon of sensuality and elegance. Brigitte Bardot in 1959 was at the height of her career as an actress and beauty icon. In that year, she continued to capture the public's attention with her charm, style, and sensuality, being one of the biggest stars of French cinema. Brigitte Bardot in 1968 was one of the most emblematic figures in movies and fashion. Known for her beauty and unmistakable style, she became a cultural icon, especially in the 1960s. In 1968, Bardot was still at the height of her career, a muse to many and a symbol of freedom and sensuality. Actress Natalie Wood, famous for her talent and beauty, was often photographed in swimwear during her career. In many of those photos, she showed the natural elegance and charm that made her one of Hollywood's great stars. In 1962, Marilyn Monroe was going through a complicated phase in her career and personal life. She was still one of Hollywood's greatest icons, but she faced difficulties in her private life, including health issues and turbulent relationships. Marilyn Monroe was still at the beginning of her career, but she was already starting to gain notoriety in Hollywood. During that period, she was in New York to study at the famous Actors Studio, where she refined her acting skills. Natalie Wood was one of Hollywood's most talented and beloved actresses, known for her beauty and versatility. She rose to prominence in movies such as West Side Story, 1961, in which she played Maria, and Rebel Without a Cause, 1955, alongside James Dean. In 1912, the women's athletics team of England made history by winning the gold medal at the Stockholm Olympic Games. It was a significant milestone because it represented the growing participation of women in sports, something relatively new for the Olympics. The image shows Helga, a young girl, offering flowers to an important figure. This simple and affectionate gesture, made by a child, was recorded at a moment that reflects an emotional connection in a significant historical context. Ernest Cadine was a French weightlifter who stood out in the 1920s and 30s. He is remembered for his notable skill in weightlifting and his participation in the Olympic Games, where he represented France in international competitions. The The scene in the New York subway in 1980 reflects a time of major changes and challenges for the city. During the 1980s, the New York subway was known for its intense crowds and also for facing issues such as safety problems and poor infrastructure. The image of a woman contemplating a snow-covered mountain pass in the Pyrenees in France in 1956 captures the beauty and calm of alpine landscapes of the time. The Pyrenees, a mountain range that separates France from Spain, are known for their stunning views and unspoiled nature. In New York in the 1960s, it shows a city scene during a time of major transformation and growth. In the 60s, New York was a vibrant center of culture, art, and social change. The photo likely captures the architecture of the time, with the iconic buildings and the urban style that defined that decade. A California beach in 1930 offers a unique view of the coastline at the time, with its calm atmosphere and a simpler, more relaxed seaside lifestyle. California beaches during the 1930s were popular destinations for Californians, offering space for leisure, rest, and outdoor sports. In 1960, in New York, many people still used coal-heated or electric clothes irons, a common household item of the time. This image likely captures an everyday scene, with someone smoothing or pressing their clothes with an iron, which was an essential task for many families. The Helena Rubinstein Salon in New York in 1958 was one of the most sophisticated and exclusive places for beauty and skincare treatments. Helena Rubinstein, one of the pioneers of the cosmetics industry, founded her company in the early 20th century and became a leading figure in the world of beauty and luxury. In 1951, a combination of a television, a radio, and a cocktail set represented a milestone of innovation in consumer product design. At that time, households began adopting television, and the idea of combining different technologies in a single unit started to gain popularity. During a battle in 1945, an Allied soldier shakes a dog's paw, showing a moment of humanity and compassion amid the chaos of war. This simple but meaningful gesture reflects the connection between people and animals, offering a brief relief from the tensions of battle. During that time, many workers and peasants did not have access to formal education, which made them dependent on people with reading and writing skills. These scribes, who were often found in public places such as the Ramblas, represented a group of people who provided administrative services. In the vicinity of Washington, District of Columbia, the expression "on the hunt" may refer to several activities or historical contexts. During that period, the United States was deeply involved in the First World War, and Washington, District of Columbia, was the center of political and military decisions. In 1913, fishing practices and the food trade still depended heavily on traditional methods, with fishermen bringing their catches directly to markets for sale. The two Kashmir giants posing with the American photographer, James. This photograph was taken at a historic moment, likely in the late 19th or early 20th century, and portrays two very tall men from the Kashmir region in India. The torpedo bicycle of 1913 was an interesting innovation of the time, reflecting the growing interest in mobility and bicycle design in the early 20th century. The torpedo bicycle, as it was known, was a model with a sturdy design and advanced features for its time. In 1943, a member of the Women's Royal Army Corps in the United Kingdom shows her tattoo to soldiers during the Second World War. The Women's Royal Army Corps was established to allow British women to enlist in the armed forces, performing essential roles in logistics support, administration, and communications. The use of electricity to treat illnesses, especially in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, was an experimental and controversial method. Although electricity was used in medical treatments with the intention of easing various conditions, such as paralysis, muscle pain, and even mental illness. The final scene of many Charlie Chaplin movies, especially in his classics such as City Lights, 1931, or Modern Times, 1936, often features emotional and moving moments of union between Chaplin's character and the female lead. Muhammad Ali, the legendary boxer, had a notable romance with Pat Cleveland, a well-known American model. Cleveland, known for her work on the runway and in major brand campaigns, was one of the women who caught Ali's attention in the 1970s. Mata Hari was an exotic dancer and courtesan, famous for her ability to captivate audiences with her sensual performances. Born as Margaretha Geertruida Zelle in the Netherlands, she became an internationally known figure during the 1910s and 1920s. One of the Egyptian pyramids with massive burial boxes on the beach in 1918 may be a reference to a historical event or discovery. However, it is possible that the description involves some confusion or error, since the pyramids are located in the desert at Giza in Egypt, not on a beach. A mother helping her child with a loose tooth in 1897. This simple, everyday moment reflects a time when dental care was very different from today. At that time, modern dental treatments were still being developed, and often parents were responsible for dealing with dental problems at home. Dolly Parton visited soldiers during the Gulf War in 1991, offering support and entertainment at a time of great tension and conflict. Known for her generosity and charisma, she performed for the troops, providing emotional relief and moments of joy in the midst of war. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please use the Super Thanks tool below. Your contribution helps us keep bringing you amazing historical content. Thank you so much for your support, and see you in the next video.